Hello everyone, Rob Guest from football.london here, and welcome to the latest episode of Gold and Guest Tottenham, sponsored by NordVPN. Joining me as ever, it's Alistair Gold. How are you?
I'm all right. Slightly jet lagged, I think. I think my grand plan of staying awake for 27 hours on my flight back and then working that night completely failed. I'm just shattered. It hasn't really worked. Should explain to people very quickly that I know we'd said we'd hoped to do a pod in Hong Kong. It just didn't work. We desperately tried to make it work, but Guesty was covering, let's say, another club in the North London sphere. And these pre-season tours have these absolutely mad schedules where you're either at a press conference, a match, or talking to a manager, or you're sitting down with a player, or you're going to an event that the club's put on. There's so many different things that we couldn't actually carve out time. I mean, we only saw each other probably 3 times. One of those was at the airport as we were going on to South Korea and you were heading home. The other time was when you recommended an absolutely dreadful restaurant in Hong Kong as well.
Give over. It was nice. I went back to it. It was fine.
That was terrible.
Yeah, I think it was literally, I saw you at the press conference on the Tuesday. You obviously came in late carrying your suitcase.
I'll explain that in a minute, everyone.
Yeah.
That was a disaster as well.
Wednesday, I walked past you by the statue, wasn't there?
Bit rude. Yep.
You were with Ledley King doing an interview. Yes. I was on my way to Arsenal's team hotel for an interview. Following day, early saw you at the stadium, day of the game, and then
of course
Thursday.
That was 4 times, wasn't it?
Yeah. Then taxi back to the airport on Friday.
That was it. I guess we could have done a podcast in the taxi. He'd have been very confused, the driver. I should very quickly explain there. So I had a bit of a nightmare relative nightmare. Obviously, I'm covering Spurs in Asia, so there's no real nightmare involved. But it was my youngest daughter's graduation, so I had to kind of get the last possible flight I could that might still get me there. Get there to be at my daughter's graduation, but also maybe get there for the press conference. And I would have just made it, but for the fact that the airplane did about a 25-minute taxi across Hong Kong airport, it was just madness. So yeah, I rocked up with my suitcase in the Kai Tak Stadium. Everyone taking a mickey out of me because I'd missed the presser by about 10 minutes or so. But thankfully, Guesty was on hand to cover it all. Just to ask you quickly before we dive into stuff, was it weird to cover Arsenal when you've been obviously covering Spurs for so much of your time?
Yeah, it was a bit, but I definitely enjoyed the 2 weeks in Singapore and Hong Kong. I was asked, obviously, by Wilma to cover it because Tom, our Arsenal correspondent, was off, but no.
I heard you put in a transfer request.
Yeah, I can exclusively reveal no on here, yeah. No, but it was a good experience, 2 weeks, and then rounded off with Tottenham beating Arsenal in Hong Kong as well by 1-0.
Absolutely, yeah. And I think it's good sometimes to see how things are done in another club and see a different view and stuff. I know it's not going to be everyone's favourite club, but it still gives you a sense of, what maybe Spurs do right and what maybe Spurs do wrong. It kind of gives you that other side to it. But yeah, it was certainly a remarkable experience we both had. In varying different ways. Spurs tour was certainly one of the most memorable I've ever been on, especially the way it ended.
I mean, you might as well go straight into it then. Obviously, what happened in South Korea, Sonny Heung-min revealing that he's departing Tottenham after 10 years at the club, moving to MLS side LAFC. He was at their game on Tuesday evening against Tigres. Just waiting for final confirmation of that move to LAFC, but it looks set to join Hugo Lloris in Los Angeles now. So go on, we'll go straight into the press conference and then everything else, what happened around the Newcastle game and his exit, because like you said, it was quite a memorable 24 hours or so.
It was incredible. I mean, I think my time covering Spurs has been marked by these 3 or 4 quite emotional moments. I think one being the finale at White Hart Lane, seeing that stadium close. Obviously, somewhere I went since I was a baby, and then Champions League, probably the night in Amsterdam, another big emotional night. Then probably, obviously, definitely Bilbao was incredible. You could probably lump the parade in with that as well. And when I kind of thought, okay, well, there's some amazing emotional stuff to cover as a journalist, but also with that fan kind of hat on, which you can't escape deep down. Then I get to be in Sonny's homeland as he is saying his farewell to the club. And not only that, very fortunate enough to be able to break the story with Jay from The Athletic, the two of us, that Sonny had asked to go and was about to kind of play his final game, which then Sonny confirmed in that press conference. And then to ask him the kind of first English question anyway about leaving Spurs, that was like nothing I've ever kind of had to do before. And in terms, I think, because with Harry Kane going, it all kind of happened almost like without us, didn't it? It just happened in the background and then he was gone. But with Sonny, it was the perfect way for him to go. He gets to play in front of, I think it was almost 65,000 of his own fans in Seoul. And the final game he played in front of the Tottenham faithful, final competitive game, was that night in Bilbao. It was just like, it was all so perfectly done. Press conference was, I'm trying to think how many were in the room, probably 40, 50 journalists, I would say. It was a pretty packed room of Korean journalists, other than a couple of us from the English media there. Thomas Frank handled it absolutely perfectly. I thought his whole tone, everything he's been like with the whole Sonny situation, has been absolutely spot on. And Sonny himself was in the presser, just about stopped himself from crying. There were a couple of times when I thought he was going to go, but obviously we saw what happened in the game, and that was a whole other thing. Just amazing. An incredible guy who's been such a huge part of life at Tottenham for the past decade, done everything he can to try and drag that club to where he wanted it to be, and he managed it that night in Bilbao as well. I don't think anyone begrudges him the move. Looks like it's going to be more than £20 million MLS record fee for a player. With a year left, I think probably if he'd gone to somewhere like Saudi, you're probably going to get 30. You're probably going to get more than that. But I think Spurs were always very respectful of everything he'd done for them. So they were going to accept, if his destination he wanted to go to was LA, then by all means they would try to make that happen. Took a lot of negotiations. The talks went on for quite a long time. Eventually got where they wanted it to be. And I think we'll probably get an announcement now on that, you'd think within the next 24, at least 48 hours at least. I don't know what else they've got to tie up that end. Makes sense for him as a move. He's going to a league that is growing, that has got Messi there. He's going to be one of its superstars. LA as well, people underestimate this. LA has got the biggest kind of number of Korean people in the USA. It's got a huge Korean population. And the USA itself, from what I understand, has got the biggest population of Korean people outside of Korea. So he's going to a place where he'll feel at home away from home, which will be great for him. And I think he'll be brilliant there. Just those images and the video of him at that match last night, he looks like a star, didn't he? He looks so cool. He looks so smart. He looks like he's going to be a bit of an LA Hollywood star type. But yeah, just really privileged to be there. And also in the tunnel, because the mix zone after is right outside the Spurs dressing room. So I got to see loads of very cool stuff after the game as well. Just, a remarkable experience.
Yeah, I think it's the right time for him to go. I think I've said it on the podcast a few times this summer. It just seemed, the perfect ending to his Tottenham story, finally lifting a trophy in Bilbao, captaining the side as well. I think personally, it has been on the decline for a year, 18 months. And there does come a point where you've got to look to the future and replace him, because he can't go on forever. So do you really, from his point of view, do you want to stay at the club, a club that you've done extremely well and you are a legend, and then finish your career there playing a bit of a bit part role and seeing others play ahead of you? Yeah. And let's be honest, what else is he going to achieve at Tottenham? Spurs aren't going to win the Premier League title this season unless there's a bit of a miracle.
Another exclusive there.
I can't see him winning the Champions League. So you might do well in a domestic cup. Like, you've won your trophy. You've still got a few years left in your career. Now go somewhere else and just enjoy the final few years of your career. And yeah, fair play. I think a good move for him to the MLS, to LAFC, reunite with Hugo Lloris. And was linked with the job there as well. So there might be a bit of a Tottenham reunion.
That would be very interesting, wouldn't it? Although for Hugo, you'd kind of think he'd be like, "Ah, what? I left because I wasn't going to be your goalkeeper." Go on, mate. Yeah.
No, I'm just going to say what he's achieved at Spurs over the past decade is incredible, and that partnership he had with Harry Kane, one of the Premier League's best. But there does come a point where you've got to move on, and I think now with a new manager coming in, it just seems like the perfect time, and the perfect fitting finale, I think, with the goodbye in career as well.
Yeah, I think it should be said as well that, I wrote this in a piece the other day, that when Thomas Frank got the job, he rang all of the senior players kind of in the squad, spoke to them and kind of tried to get their ideas and stuff. And I think it became clear quite quickly that with Sonny, it was going to be a different conversation. He was the only one to say, well, I want to go. I've kind of done what I needed to do at the club and I need a new challenge, a new environment. And yeah, I think Thomas Frank's whole demeanour about this has been absolutely, look, who am I to kind of say that you need to stay, you need to play for me. He's achieved so much, and he's achieved exactly what he wanted to at Spurs. I mean, Golden Boot winner, Puskas Award winner, so many memories, so many big nights against the likes of like Man City as well in the Champions League. You think back to that and how he just kind of dragged that team through that game as well. So many of those occasions, so many times he scored against Arsenal, scored against Chelsea, that wonderful goal as well, didn't he? I remember that one where he ran mostly down the right-hand side of the pitch. And yeah, I agree with you. I think he doesn't want to be a player that is less than the star at Spurs, and quite rightly so. It was incredible in the Seoul World Cup Stadium. Thomas Frank nailed that as well. I actually stupidly didn't realise what he was doing, because I kind of remember tweeting this. So it was like there were two subs came on and Kudus was about to come on with them. It was going to be a triple sub. And I tweeted something like, oh, Kudus isn't ready yet, so they're having to wait for him, kind of thing. And I was like, oh, you're so thick. I don't know why I tweeted that, because I could tell as soon as I'd tweeted it, like 2 minutes later, it was planned. It was to give him his own little moment. And my word, was it a moment. It was one of those where the football no longer mattered. You could see the whole game just kind of ended essentially in that moment. All the players from both sides came over. They're all kind of giving him hugs and everything. They formed this very quick guard of honor, slapping him on the head as he went through. He was absolutely fine when he was on the pitch. He wasn't crying, I don't think. He looked quite kind of happy that he loved what they were doing. It was the moment he came over to Kudus and hugged him and crossed that white line. And I think it just went like bang, like a freight train. It hit him that was the final. He'd crossed the line. He was no longer going to be playing for Tottenham Hotspur ever again. And he just totally, the emotions hit him. He went over and hugged Thomas Frank. He was meant to go down the line of all the staff and everything, but couldn't make it. You could see he was struggling. So they all came in this massive group hug. And it was just like the rest of the game was very much a walk to. Obviously, we could talk about James Maddison. That was like such a horrendous thing to happen in a game where it had all been so positive. And then afterwards, you might have seen the images of him being thrown up in the air by the players in a big group. And then, like I said earlier, I was lucky enough to be outside the changing room where I saw so much happening. I saw him having this really kind of almost said romantic. I didn't say romantic, kind of emotional was the word I was looking for. Embrace with Guglielmo Vicario, who in that very Italian way was like kiss him on the top of the head constantly and everything. And Pat Matassar came out to get him and drag him back into the dressing room at one point as well. He went out and did some stuff with the Korean media. There was a good 40, 50 of them again in the mix zone. He spoke to them. I've seen some of the stuff where he spoke about Ben Davies being upset. And actually, I kind of saw the aftermath of that. I saw Ben Davies was one of the first players to go on as a team coach. His eyes were so red. It looked like someone had poked him in both of his eyes. He'd clearly been really upset. We spoke to Ben a couple of days before in an interview in Hong Kong, and the love that he has got for Sonny is, I mean, they've been best friends for almost a decade, hasn't it? Probably since the start. Sonny is the godfather to his little boy, Ralph, and I think he was at his wedding as well. They are so, so close. And there was a nice little moment as well. So Newcastle got this young player that they've just signed from K-League 2, I think it is, called Park Sun-soo. And he came on at the end of the game. He was up against Jed Spence in the final minutes. And he was hanging around outside the dressing room, the Spurs dressing room. He had his like green away Newcastle shirt in his hand that he'd been wearing. And we all kind of knew what he wanted to do. And it's quite understandable. But he wasn't getting in there. He was like so respectful. He was just standing there hoping that maybe someone might kind of let him in. And security guards kind of weren't noticing that he was there. Or they were maybe aware and just thinking, all right, well, we don't really know who you are. And then Jed Spence, funny enough, came out into the doorway and saw him and went, come on, come in. And like brought him in. And I don't know, 5 minutes or so later, he emerged with the biggest grin on his face. I think he's 18. And he's like held up, the Korean media all suddenly swarmed back over because they saw him coming out. And he held up this shirt that had Sonny's signature and a little message on it. And he honestly, he looked like he'd won the lottery. It was so lovely. And that was what it was about Sonny. It was, he put smiles on people's faces. I think that's what you can always say about him, whether it's with his football or the way he was. People around Hotspur Way would always say you could hear him coming from miles away because he was making some kind of loud, mostly happy noise. Occasionally, you know, because of the emotional guy he is, you'd hear his frustration. But on the whole, it was him being very happy and laughing at something. I wrote him, I did a big piece on him on football.london on the day it was confirmed that he was going to be playing his last game. And I spoke to so many people that had worked with him, either staff member, played with him, whatever. And the key thing that a lot of people said was he was a unifier. He would bring everyone together. He would bring all the different groups in that squad. I mean, we know we've reported on the team before when you'd have the cliques, wouldn't you? The Spanish speakers, the French speakers, the English lads, you'd have all these little separate camps. Sonny brought them all together. You know, he was part of the Welsh Mafia, wasn't he? As they called it, with Joe Roden, Gareth Bale and Ben Davies. He brought everyone together. And there was a moment last season when they were really struggling. And he called this team meeting at Hotspur Way. And just for all the players and just really drilled into them that you've got to stick together. Whatever's being said in the media, whatever's happening with the results, you stick together. And there's a lot of people that kind of believe that kind of put the team on the path to winning the Europa League. It kind of just galvanized them and brought them tighter together again. So, yeah, Sonny, what a man, what a legend. Even if he admits, or he'll only admit it was for one night only, it was definitely for far more than one night. And again, absolutely privileged to be there to report on his final game. It was amazing.
Favourite Sonny memory then for Tottenham?
Oh, good question. Obviously, the goal against Burnley was something special. I think maybe this surpassed it. I think his final game for me is probably the one. Scored a cracker against Arsenal when it was behind closed doors, and we were only like a few of us journalists able to see that. That was quite special as well, in a very different, weird way. And that night against Man City, the quarterfinal of the Champions League, that he just kept running them ragged. They didn't know how to deal with him. But they're probably the ones for me. What's yours?
Probably the quarterfinal double header, Champions League against Man City. Scored the winner in the home leg and then scored those two brilliant goals, didn't he, early on, which gave Spurs a huge boost, and he ended up going all the way to the final in Madrid in the end. Probably the other one, what's a bit of a standout, is the hat-trick against Leicester a few years ago. I think it was Conte's first full season when Son had started the season really, really poorly, and the question marks over his place in the team, and they took him out of the team, brought him on and got a hat-trick within a matter of minutes, and they're all fantastic goals as well. But he's just been such an incredible servant to the club. Incredible 10 years. It's just a shame it's only the one trophy. He's got a team trophy, because Spurs had the team that could have gone on and won a bit more, but at least he did get that trophy in the end, and he captained the team as well. So fair play. Right then, in terms of a replacement for Son, then it doesn't look like Tottenham are going to be looking at signing a new left winger. You obviously did a piece the other day from Career. Tottenham looking at a new number 10, new centre back as well. So that would suggest Sonny's replacement is coming internally. Wilson Odebear, Thomas Frank's taken quite a bit of a shine to him so far. There's Matisse Tell. There's definitely a lot of options for that left-sided role.
Yeah, this is the thing, and I get why people want an exciting new signing there, and I understand that. And I think if someone else were to leave, then probably they look to get a replacement there. But I think right now, you could play on that left-hand side. Odebear, Tell, Richarlison, Johnson, Kudus can play there as well. And also, we're going to talk about young players and blocking their pass and stuff like that. Bring in someone else. When's Mikey Moore ever going to get a game for Spurs if you keep putting players in that position? So I get it. And he has, from what I can kind of see and what I understand as well, taken a real shine to Odebear. I think he thinks he's going to be something special, which he by all means could be, because he's got a growing confidence now. He's back from the hamstring injury, and fully back in the rhythm of things. I think we're going to see a lot more of him. I thought he was good in spells against Arsenal, definitely. So they're huge shoes to fill. Don't get me wrong. You're not going to replace Sonny that quickly. It's going to take time. And also, people kind of forget, new manager, new system. It'd be interesting to see how these players fit into it. It may be that they fit into it even better than they did into the Postecoglou system. So, yeah, we'll see. But certainly, I know there's been links all over the place, isn't there? Rodrigo's the one that keeps coming up. There seems to be this real concerted push. I don't know whether it's from the people around him or whether it's people around Madrid. I don't know, to just like link him with Spurs. That'll do it. That'll get everyone in if Spurs are linked with him. Just everyone I speak to within the Spurs is just like, no, it's just not a thing. But we've seen this sometimes. You and I are often having to write reports on kind of media from other countries that will kind of get have a story pushed their way. Let's put it that way. And it just doesn't look like it. It's the same maybe with the striking options as well. That I think while you've got Solanke and Richarlison able to play there, and Tell able to play there, and Johnson and Kudus at a push as well able to play there, probably not going to see a new striker replacement. If Richarlison were to go, I think you probably would. And I know the injury issues around Richarlison will cause, concern and pause over it. And obviously Solanke's out at the moment with the ankle injury. But yeah, it feels like in the attacking slots, he's kind of happy enough with what he's got right now. Look, there's over 3 weeks left to go, 3.5 weeks still to go. With Richarlison's unfortunate record in recent years, he might get injured by the time the transfer window comes to a close. They might just think, look, we've got to bring someone in. But at the moment, and people are going to have their own opinions on whether it's the quality is there, the strength there for Champions League and everything. Personally, I think Solanke's terrific. We've kind of made our feelings very clear on Solanke, and I know your feelings on Richarlison. And what I would also say is that if he's fit and available, he always makes an impact, Richie. I think he's good enough to do that. It's just keeping him fit. But if you can keep him and Solanke fit, and you've got those other players capable of kind of playing that they're at a push as well, I can see it. And also, it's a tough sell, isn't it? Come to this team, we only play with one up front. You're probably not going to play too much, but if you're just essentially going to have to battle for your spot. And I know that's the case at a lot of clubs, but I think for someone like Spurs, if you're going to try and get a striker, you've probably got to offer them guaranteed week in, week out football if you want top level striker.
Yeah, 100%. Time will tell if it's the right decision or not. It might be like
Matisse.
It might be like last January, whereas Spurs needed a centre back. It looked like they had enough, but then all those injuries happened. That could be the case again. Fingers crossed you can get a good chunk of football out of Richie this season, because his 3 seasons at the club have just been so stop-start. But you saw the impact he can have in the team. That was evident in the Europa League final against Manchester United. They were fantastic that evening. And
they played his part in a goal.
Yeah, and clearly loved him as well. Always mentioned in press conference when he came to Richie, he always made an impact on the pitch when he was playing. But the issue was getting him on the pitch because of those injuries. So, yeah, I think there's enough cover for striker. I think what has to be a priority is a new number 10, because James Maddison picking up that injury. I mean, they were already short in that area anyway. This was prior to Maddison getting the injury, missing out on Morgan Gibbs-White as well. Decky, question marks of him coming in when he's going to return from his injury, because I don't think Thomas Frank's really said anything on Decky so far in terms of his fitness, has he?
No, from my understanding, he's definitely not going to be there for the first month of the season, from what I keep hearing, unless there's a remarkable recovery.
Yeah, and Kudus can play as a number 10, Odebear as well, but I think you want to be keeping them in their best positions. So, yeah, that's got to be priority. Bit surprised about looking at a new centre-back when you look at the current options. Because if you're bringing in another permanent centre-back, you've got Luka Vuskovic. Does that block his pathway? The same with Kota Takai. There's Ashley Phillips as well. Personally, I don't think he'll ever get a run in the Tottenham team. Third season out on loan now. You know, maybe the writing's on the wall for him, even though he's still early, a young lad. It's probably difficult to come back from that, spending so much time out on loan. But you've got Romero, Van der Ven, Ben Davies can play there, Danzo, Dragusin once he's back. There's a number of centre-backs there. But again, Van der Ven and Romero spent a large chunk of the season, past couple of seasons out injured. Dragusin, same as Decky when's he going to return from his long-term injury. Who knows what's going to happen with Kota Takai come the end of the window. Spurs got a decision to make over him. But for me, you just look at bringing in the centre-back on loan, especially if you've got a couple of young lads there who are the future of the club.
Yeah, I mean, quick quiz for you. 60-game season for Spurs last season. How many games did Romero play and how many games did Van der Ven play of 60?
Mid-30s.
Ooh.
Or late 20s.
Romero played 26. Van der Ven played 22. So if I'm Thomas Frank, I am probably coming in and thinking, am I actually going to have those two wonderful defenders together that much? And I can understand that being a concern because you take them out of it, take Dragusin out of it because we don't know when he'll kind of start his season and how long it will take him to kind of be sharp as well. You're kind of really left with Kevin Danso as your only fit senior centre-back. And look, Van der Ven and Romero are fit right now. I absolutely know that. But again, they have missed both of them, not even just last year, the previous year as well. They missed kind of some important periods of time. And so I kind of do understand it on one level, that I think in terms of natural ones, there probably aren't enough senior ones, especially when you've got Champions League football as well. Because that's the thing. Look, I agree 100% that Luka Vuskovic has looked really exciting in pre-season. I would say mainly we've seen a lot of the attacking aspects of him. We probably haven't seen too much of him having to defend as of yet. And I think that's probably one of the things, isn't it? It's throwing an 18-year-old into Premier League and Champions League matches potentially and saying, there you go, defend, when they've been used to, with no disrespect, Polish league football and Belgian league football, which is a very, very different kind of beast. And so I get that. And I get why, as I reported the other day, he's been made available for loan. And there are tons of clubs after Luka Vuskovic, understandably. A lot of them wanted to have an option to buy him, and Spurs were like, no, do one. That's not going to happen. That's kind of left this core of 4 or 5 sides that are happy to kind of take him on just on a straight loan. Because I guess for a lot of clubs, it's like, well, why should we develop your young player? And I understand that. So, yeah, I think one of the clubs, from what I understand, is Hamburg. I think his brother plays there, doesn't he? So there's this kind of family link there. So, yeah, with Vuskovic, you don't want to have a scenario where he is just there and playing the odd game now and then. With someone like that, you want him playing week in, week out, so he can come back next season ready for it. And if you notice on the tour, he didn't really play. He did in the early season, pre-season games, but actually on the tour, it was Davies and Danso were the two kind of other centre-backs, as it were, that were coming into the team. So I don't think he was kind of right up there in the forefront. Who else got? Takai, you said he's got this plantar fascia right now, which is when you get the kind of problem underneath your foot. It's classic Spurs, isn't it? It's just like, new arrival. Oh, you're injured. He'll come back. I think exactly like you said. There'll be a look at him as the window goes on, and by the end of it, currently he's set to be part of the first team squad. But I guess if they're in a position where Dragusin is coming back and he's in a good place, then maybe you can allow him to have a 6-month loan or so, just to kind of see how he gets on. And with most loan Spurs do have a recall clause in January. But yeah, I do get it. I get the centre-back idea. I know for a lot of people, their priorities they'll feel are elsewhere, but I do understand it, purely because when Spurs get injuries, they often happen in one position. as we saw last season. And he doesn't want to be in a position where he's having to play Archie Gray, who was brilliant against Newcastle, by the way. That, aside from the Sonny stuff and Maddison, was probably my takeaway from the game, was how good Archie Gray was. I think you can't have a situation where Archie Gray is having to play as a centre-back again, having never played there in his life before last season. So, yeah, I get it. But I also understand why people will think, well, aren't there other areas for priority? Because there was one other area that I got a direct answer from Thomas Frank on that he doesn't want. And that surprised me too.
Yeah, fullback.
Yes.
Left back, because there's not a lot of natural, shall we say, left backs at the club. I'd probably consider Ben Davies more as a centre back now rather than a left back, because that's where the vast majority of his football's come over the past couple of seasons. And I probably wouldn't say, obviously, he's not like a dog easy or Jed Spence in the left back role, a marauding left back who's got the pace to get up and down and forward. But no, doesn't look like they're going to look at getting the left back in. So that means probably going to see quite a bit of Jed at left back, because Destiny Dog is injured at the minute. I mean, there are other players who can fill in there if required, but no new left back.
No, it seems that way. I asked him very, very. I mean, I can read the quote out for you. I'll just read the start of it. Actually, he said, I said, have you got enough fullbacks? And he said, yeah, I think so. Because right now we have Ben and Spence. I thought Jed was very good against Arsenal, did very well against Saka, which he did. I still maintain he's better as a left back than the right back. I've just got this weird thing about it. I just think he's better there. And I think Ben is a very important player. And yeah, there's a whole bit. He went on to this long thing about Ben Davies. The thing I would say to you, I know you said about him being more of a centre back nowadays than a left back. The thing with the Thomas Frank system that I've kind of noticed so far, the back line's quite similar to Mourinho's in that in possession it becomes a back three. And as Mourinho once said about Ben Davies, he's a very important player if you want to do that, because the fullback suddenly becomes a centre back. Was it Azpilicueta he did it with, didn't he, at Chelsea?
I can't remember, but that benefited Serge Aurier, didn't it? At Tottenham.
He did, yeah. And that, likewise, Pedro Porro could get as far up the pitch as he wants now. Or if Spence is playing as a right back, that can allow him to do that as well. Personally, I think they do need another fullback still, but it's not my decision. I wonder whether he thinks about potentially playing Van der Ven there. I don't know. I don't like that idea myself. I think it puts too much pressure on someone that's had hamstring injuries to get up and down the pitch. But I get also, and this was actually goes back to the centre-back thing, he may play back threes at points, like an actual natural back three. So that is probably why you need another centre-back. But yeah, he really raved about Ben Davies. And bearing in mind, a couple of days earlier, I'd spoken to Ben, like I said, and also asked him about his future. And he was very much like, I don't know. I don't know what's happening, kind of thing. And I kind of felt a bit weird that then I had Thomas Frank raving about Ben Davies to me. I was kind of almost tempted to say, have you told him? Because he seems to not know what's happening with himself. And he actually went to such a degree that I said to him, you're talking about him as a leader and how he is like a big person in his club. And he is his longest serving player. And I said, I don't know if you're aware, Thomas, but Ben Davies has never been in a leadership group for some reason over the 11 years he's been at the club. And I said, are you considering to be part of your leadership group? And he said, I think I've got the line here. He said, where is it? Oh, I did have it. Oh, it's definitely something I'm thinking about. Yeah, I will say it that way. And it actually got me wondering, I don't know if this would be the case. Do you think he might make him captain?
No,
I don't think so, but it did cross my mind. Maybe like a club captain thing, like they had Michael Dawson was years back.
Yeah, maybe as a club captain. Very similar. I think it's like Jamal Lascelles at Newcastle. He's club captain, but he's not playing, so he's Bruno Guimaraes. He's captain. Davies ain't going to start.
No, I think vice captain would make sense, though.
Well, put it this way: he's not going to start all 38 Premier League games.
No, who's your captain going to be?
Romero.
I think it has to be, personally.
Romero, then probably looking at Vicario, vice captain, Decky maybe.
I think Davies.
Is Maddison still going to be vice captain? I don't see Maddison as captain material, really. But
I think he still probably will be, but I think he's going to be out probably for a while. I'm hoping he's not. We don't have the latest information on it yet, but it did not look good. I mean, we haven't even spoken about that yet, really. It was horrendous. Non-contact. You could just see how gutted he was. I saw him in the mix zone walking through on his crutches, hood pulled down. He looked utterly devastated. And Thomas Frank did say it's the same knee again. And I know it sounds awful to hope for one kind of injury, but you kind of hope it's his medial ligament rather than the cruciate, the anterior one. Because if it's that, well, we're seeing with Dragishin, it's going to be a long, long time. You presume surgery is required. Yeah, we're waiting to hear the latest on that. So I don't want to kind of go too far into speculating, but it just didn't look good. So, but yeah, as a vice captain, I think you'd keep him like that because he's going to be in and around the club and everything still. But yeah, I just wonder if Ben Davies, well, sounds like he is going to be part of that leadership group.
Yeah, I think Porro should be someone you should consider for the leadership group as well.
Yeah.
He's very vocal. Put it this way, he plays every week. Well, he did last season.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Oh, he's guaranteed regular. Yeah. I mean, Solanke as well has become a bit of a kind of a leadership figure, more in a kind of inspiring than talking way, maybe.
Yeah. Right. We're more than halfway through today's podcast, so got to talk about the benefits of using our sponsor, Saily. I'm sure you used it out in South Korea and Hong Kong.
Yes, I'm sure we both did. Absolutely. I know, obviously, we're doing it on work's time and money. So, but if we can benefit them, that they can save a bit of money, because that's exactly what Saily does. It's a brilliant eSIM service from NordVPN, which obviously you always hear is extolling the virtues of. And I did use Nord while I was away as well to check up on some of the stuff in the UK that I couldn't normally access. But with Saily, it is an eSIM that saves you loads of money on most normal mobile networks roaming costs. It's a very clever thing, an eSIM, which if you've never used it before, you essentially just kind of download it, install it, get your phone to recognize it's there, which is quite an easy process as well. The Saily app gives you all of the instructions on how to do that. And yeah, you can then use your mobile data to your heart's delight, and obviously I used it for multiple WhatsApp calls back home to the family to be able to speak to them using the data that I would normally roughly use anyway at home for a very good price. And on top of all of that, we've got a great discount on it for you, because you can either download Saily, which is SAILY, in your app store, and you can use our special code GOLDGUEST at the checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase. Or you can just go directly online to saily.com/goldguest, and that does the same discount. Honestly, it's a really good product, really good service. Wouldn't push it if it wasn't something I use myself and have used with lots of success. And for more information, in case you missed any of those details, go to our episode description box.
We've got a brand new signing to talk about, and that's João Palhinha. He's joined Tottenham on the season-long loan deal from Bayern Munich, option to buy next summer for the club. This was announced quite late on Sunday evening. Potentially, Palhinha could be making his Tottenham debut against his parent club, Bayern, tomorrow at the Allianz Arena in Spurs' latest pre-season fixture. I think this is a fantastic signing. Spurs have been crying out for a defensive midfielder for quite some time, and I think we all saw in his 2 seasons in the Premier League with Fulham just what he can produce. I think I was looking through the stats of his yesterday in the Premier League. Across his 2 seasons, 300 tackles. I think it was Moises Caicedo was next in line with 195 compared to Palhinha's 300 tackles. He was a huge influential figure in the middle, apart from Marco Silva's team, and I think they missed him in their last season. The move to Bayern Munich didn't quite work out. I think it was 25 appearances all in all competitions last season, which obviously it's always going to be a bit of a tough ask going to Bayern given the midfielders they've got at the club, but probably not a surprise to see him head out on loan. What a move for Spurs. Really, really good. He's someone who can, if you can replicate that Fulham form, provide that defensive shield in front of the back line, win those tackles, get the ball moving forward, can definitely elevate Tottenham to another level. It's what they've been crying out for.
Yeah, it's one of those where I've seen some people kind of not impressed by it. I think maybe there's an idea this kind of in the day and age, and I know other teams spending over 200 billion or stuff. It's almost like a loan deal was maybe sneered at a little bit. It's like, well, that's not very ambitious, but actually, it's a terrific buy. It really is. Of all the try before you buy type deals you could get, this is a fantastic one. And obviously, a lot of last season, I think the reason he had some issues was because he missed a good 2.5 months with a torn muscle that he got on international duty. I think it was an adductor muscle. So there was kind of a reasoning behind why he didn't play that much for Bayern. It was probably because he never really got going with his Bayern career. And I spoke to Thomas Frank about him on the tour just as it was all kind of happening, and he was a little bit surprised that Bayern actually let him go. He didn't think it was a transfer they were able to get done. And I don't think it's any secret that in an ideal world, Thomas Frank would have loved Christian Norgard to come across to Spurs. I think, we know that he's one of his favourite players of all time, really. He's worked with him since he was a kid. What is he, 31, 32?
Norgard's 31, yeah. Palhinha's 30, yeah.
Yeah, so if you're looking at another option than that, this is a very good option. A year younger, as you said earlier, has proven in the Premier League that he was someone that a lot of clubs wanted and Bayern got, and he kind of went there, got this experience, Champions League experience, Club World Cup as well. I know he only played 30 minutes or so in it as well, but you've got a season ahead where you've got the Premier League and the Champions League come up as well as the domestic competitions. You've got the Super Cup as well against PSG. You want to bring in a player of that caliber to come in. I think as long as they can obviously keep him fit and the injury issue of last season was just like a one-off thing, then he could be a hell of an anchor man sitting at the back of that midfield. And as Thomas Frank said, it kind of allows someone like Bentancur to drive on now. And we saw how Bentancur could be just before the injury, the bad cruciate ligament one, when he was Conte, wasn't it? When he was a match winner quite a few weeks. The team were looking at him, and he can become that kind of midfielder again. And he told me, Thomas Frank, that this was just a position, one of the first things he kind of noticed, probably before he came in, and he kind of had it confirmed when he started to assess the squad. They just didn't have an absolutely natural number 6. He said Bentancur can play that. He's probably the closest one they've got to being able to play in it. But he said that, Palhinha just comes in and is that position. And that, I think, unlocks a lot of the Frank system. Because if you've got this solid, disciplined base at the bottom of the midfield that protects the defence, then suddenly everyone else in that midfield knows that they can go on. They can have an attack. They can be comfortable. Someone like Bergvall now doesn't have to kind of be sprinting back constantly because he knows Palhinha is going to be there mopping up behind him. It's going to be good for his development as well. And as I said to Thomas Frank as well, even if it ends up just being a short-term deal, at the end of it, you've allowed Archie Gray and Lucas Bergvall to grow and develop for another year and learn from someone like Palhinha. And I just think it's a really clever purchase. I think he could be very good for Spurs. And I mean, he was brilliant at Fulham. Everyone's raved about him, didn't they?
Yeah, 100%. And like you said, I think it does free up Bentancur. Bentancur's best football in the Tottenham shirt was in that season, 22-23 on the Conte. Scored late on against Bournemouth, got a couple of late goals against Leeds in that 4-3 game. Scored late against Sporting in the Champions League. I think that was an equaliser. And playing in that number 8 role, that's his best role. It gives him the license to get forward. He had Pierre-Emile Højbjerg sitting for him then, which helps. And I think, Palhinha can help get Bentancur back to his next level. And I know it's not Tottenham's usual transfer strategy in buying a 30-year-old player, but Ange
Maybe
made
that's
it
a good thing.
Yeah, well, this is what I've just got to say. Ange made it clear in the press conferences towards the end of last season. Spurs need experience and they need Champions League experience. And they've ticked both boxes bringing Palhinha in. So I think it's a fantastic piece of business. I really do.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. I think you are. When you've got a group of so many young players, teenagers, 20-year-olds, like 22, 23-year-olds in there as well, to have a 30-year-old sat as the real, probably regular starter in the middle of your team, the base of the spine of that team, he's someone that everyone can look to, can listen to. And I just think it's a terrific purchase. Obviously, nose tell. played at Bayern with Tel in the first half of the season. Knows Pedro Porro very well from Sporting time. We've seen that video already of him sneaking in while he's getting kind of adjusted to the club. They must have landed and he's probably kind of headed in there. And yeah, I think that could be one of those underrated transfers that in the middle of the season, people are like, wow, that was a bit of a sleeper transfer. That's caught us all unawares. I'm really happy with that. Look, don't get me wrong, they need to do a lot more. I think there still needs to be a lot more kind of, not least the number 10 position worries me a lot with Maddison going out and Kulusevski not being there. Do you think they'll go for Eze? I know he's the name that we've bandied about for so long, but I think surely they kind of have to. I don't know whether Thomas Frank sees him as an ideal fit or not for that position, but the fact that he can play inside and on the wing as well, and I think it will cost a lot of money. That there's talk of a release clause. There's been talk about potentially it being an expensive release clause in terms of a lot up front. There's been some suggestions of that as well. But surely, I mean, what are the number 10s out there that really fit the system as well as he wanted Morgan Gibbs-White to?
Well, I was on about this with Wilmer the other day. He was asking me which number 10s are at. Yeah. You know, could you go for Jacob Ramsey? I suggested just go bring Dele back. He's free.
But, yeah, I mean, Harvey Elliott, I suppose.
Yeah, he looks like he's going to Leipzig at the moment.
So you're lot looking at Grealish, aren't
they? Yeah, on loan, unless Spurs are going to come in and ruin our plans like they did with Danjuma that time.
That's not a good level of kind of comparison. We probably should have let you have him ultimately. I felt so sorry for him. Conte just didn't want him, did he, Danjuma?
No. But in terms of the number 10, yeah, surely you got to go for Eze now. There can't be that much price difference between 60 million for Morgan Gibbs-White and then Eze at Palace. I know you mentioned there might be a lot more up front. Just pay it. Yeah, you know what you can bring to the team, and there's potential. Signing. Yeah, there's potential of Arsenal coming in and getting him. So Arsenal have been heavily linked with him, and let's be honest, if Arsenal are going to make a move, it's probably going to go there.
Maybe. God, look at you with your time in the Arsenal camp there. You can see that. I know what you mean. What you mean. In terms of a ready-made title challenging product, I suppose, yes, I get it. I really like Eze. I mean, yes, he can be a little bit inconsistent at times. I think that's what I'd probably say. I don't know if we've had a season from him yet where I suppose, not only has he stayed completely fit, but also has consistently contributed a lot of stuff over a season. But maybe that is because numbers-wise, maybe at a club like Palace, there's less opportunities, although, of course, they're a far better kind of team nowadays and FA Cup winners as well. But, yeah, for me, I would absolutely, in the words of Kevin Keegan, love it if they were to sign him, because I think he's a very exciting player. And then you'd look at that and you'd see Kudus, who's been brilliant. I'm very excited at seeing him playing. You've got Brennan Johnson, who I think people are going to be surprised at with Brennan this season. I spoke to him the other day. I had a great interview with him out in, I think that was Hong Kong as well. People maybe forget that Brentford and Thomas Frank really wanted Brennan Johnson. They thought they were getting him, and then he went to Spurs at the last minute. So he's got plans for Brennan Johnson, and he scored a beautiful goal against Newcastle. That was superb. And he was talking to us about how he's really been trying to improve on the 1v1 stuff. We know that that's an issue with his game. He doesn't take on his man enough. He knows he's got to do more of that. But in terms of someone that's going to get in those positions and score you goals, you've got him. And yeah, I think you bring in someone of the level of Eze, and I think suddenly Spurs transform a bit as a team. And I think they're suddenly one that other teams really, really start taking notice of. But again, exactly like you say, whether he wants to go to Arsenal, whether Arsenal still are that interested in him, and whether he is as affordable as, we would hope he is. Obviously, Palace don't really want him to be that affordable, I suppose. I suppose there's the Mark Gay stuff as well. How many big players can they lose this summer? But yeah, I just think he's terrific. I should actually state, from everything I understand about Spurs, they're confident they've got the funds to realise their transfer plans this summer. So hopefully that means even if they were to go for someone like Eze, But I just think he's a bit of a no-brainer in terms of filling both the number 10 role, but also able to play out wide as well. So it kind of kills two birds with one stone. A concern that Spurs have, and a concern that maybe the fans have, that they maybe need another winger as well. So we'll see what they actually do with him.
In terms of the number 10 role, then at present, probably going to see a bit more of a Lucas Bergvall there, because we did against Arsenal. That's what I was just going to say. Pat Matasar after
Sorry,
that.
I'm just reading your mind at the moment.
After that brilliant goal in the North London derby in Hong Kong. Yeah, there's two options there for Frank at the moment, but you don't want them to be the long-term option. Spurs need to bring in that new number 10.
Yeah, I think they're very good in terms of you've got another player that can also play as a central midfielder, so they can come back and create a solid base. Absolutely. I did feel there were a couple of times, maybe with Bergvall mainly, where he would get caught up the pitch a little bit and there would be a massive space against Arsenal. It didn't quite work at times when he was in that role then. But Sar's probably been maybe the player of pre-season, I think, so far. Thomas Frank adores him. He told me, I asked him about kind of the players that he's worked with, if anyone surprised him. He was just like, Sar. It's like he knew he was going to be good. He didn't quite realise what level he can potentially be at. I think we've all known this. It's finding exactly where he's best at, what his role is, because he's such a versatile guy. But he's got all of the abilities, the technique and the movement, the anticipation, and that goal was phenomenal. I mean, probably would have been a foul in a Premier League game because of Richarlison clobbering Miles Skelly, wasn't it? And yeah, I'm trying to think exactly where it was on the pitch. It was just over the halfway line, wasn't it? Beautiful finish, absolutely beautiful. It was a little bit reminiscent of Kane. Was it against Juventus? I think it was maybe Singapore. I was trying to remember where that was.
Singapore 2019, that was.
There you go. Oh my goodness, that feels far more recent than like 6 years ago. Yeah, I really like Sarr, always have, and I think he's going to be a big player within the Frank setup this season, because maybe not as good a season last season as the one before. But I think he can really kind of excel in this system. I think he's one of those players that I know I might have had some quotes from him on him here, that he's saying that even though, don't forget Bergvall and Gray are 19, but Sarr's 22. I think just those extra 3 years, probably he's in that kind of area now where he can really start pushing on towards something like the finished product he'll be as a player. So yeah, they'll be the two that I think will be used. You could play Kudus there as a 10, I guess. I wouldn't like to take him off the wing because I just think he's absolutely devastating on the wing. He's so good. If you could mould what he brings in the 1v1s with what Johnson brings in the final product, you would have one of the best Premier League players right now, I think. But yeah, it's I think the other way of looking at that, if you're going to look at it positive way, two very different options, two different kind of tools to unlock each door that they come up against in the Premier League. But they need a natural number 10. They absolutely do.
Yeah, we'll move on to transfer outgoings now because it's been a very busy past 72 hours or so at Tottenham Hotspur Stadium. I think we've seen 4 players go. One player last week in Mikey Moore, he headed to Rangers in the SPL. Brilliant move for him. Potentially going to be playing in the Champions League. I think Rangers are in a really good position to be involved in the Champions League playoff game later this month. So in terms of the other outgoings this week, we've already seen Tyrese Hall go to Notts County. I think he's needed a loan move for a good year now.
100%.
He didn't get it last season, but hopefully we can see him kick on a bit more. Will Lancashire gone to Oxford United, the second loan deal we've seen between Spurs and Oxford in the past 12 months. Dane Scarlett went there last year. I think it was 4 goals in 21 appearances, something like that, before he was recalled. Jamie Donnelly's gone to Stoke City. That was confirmed this morning. And George Abbott, who's caught the eye in pre-season, he's gone to Wycombe Wanderers in League One. Some good moves for them. Players stepping up levels, especially Jamie Donnelly and George Abbott. Will Lancashire getting another shot at the Championship because the loan move to West Brom just didn't work for him last season. Bit of a bit part role in those 11 games, didn't score. But fingers crossed there will be an opportunity there for him to play week in, week out, because he scored in pre-season for Spurs, didn't he? In the win against Reading, really good header. He's someone who just needs a lot more first-team football under his belt, and the same goes for everyone who's headed out on loan, and that's probably not even going to be the end of it either.
Oh, no way. No, not at all. I mean, I wrote in a report earlier in the week that I knew that Vuskovic, Donnelly, Lancashire, Abbott, Heung-min, Tyrese Hall, obviously, and we know about Devine and Scarlett, all up and available for loan. That's a lot of players. And yeah, I'm intrigued to see how Will Lancashire does. I did another really, I was very lucky with the interviews on the tour. That just the players seem to be really receptive and in a kind of really just good place. And Will Lancashire did a terrifically honest interview for a, 20-year-old. Really, really good. And I felt sorry for him because one of the lines of it was that he just wanted to score against Arsenal. Yeah, he really did, because they released him as a kid, and that burns you as a kid, doesn't it? It was really difficult for him, and unfortunately, he wasn't in the squad on the next day. I did feel so gutted for him that he wasn't able to see that through, but that's still to come. He can still do that. But yeah, a lot of players are heading out on loan. A lot of clubs that Spurs used before last season as well. I'm starting to wonder whether Jamie Donnelly needs to go with a friend each time he goes to a club. It's Ashley Phillips now, isn't it? Josh Keeley last season. Although I think he went to Orient before Josh Keeley did, I think. So technically I can't level that accusation against him. But yeah, again, he filled in and did well in pre-season. George Abbott, I think, proved to a lot of people that he's, got a chance of getting in that first team setup if he keeps on developing. I do like George Abbott as a player as well. It's just a lot of players. It is a lot of players. Mikey Moore, I agree that he needs to head out on loan. Demola Ajayi, of course, went to Doncaster Rovers earlier in the summer too. Alfie Dorrington to Aberdeen. It's a lot of players. I think I totaled it up. If you include Josh Keeley leaving for Luton permanently, that's 13 young players that have headed out the door. I guess my question to you would be, is that a good thing?
Well, it's good in terms of giving them the experience, but on the other side, it shows that there's not really a pathway into that first team for the young lads. But let's be honest, if Jamie Donnelly can replicate what he did at Leyton Orient last season at Stoke, then fingers crossed, he'll be in a good position to be part of that first team squad next season. I think with Donnelly heading to Stoke have never done well in the Championship since they've been relegated. I'm sure I read somewhere they've always finished between 14th and 18th in like 7 seasons since they've been relegated. But he's got a top manager in Mark Robbins there, who did a fantastic job at Coventry. Brought their players to new levels altogether. Victor Gyökeres, Gus Hamer as well, a number of those still at Coventry who are doing really well. So he can extract even more out of Donnelly. So I think that's a good move. But I was saying to you before the podcast, when we're talking about all these loan players, when Spurs announced the pre-season tour squad, it said Mikey Moore, Dane Scarlett, Alfie Devine staying behind to explore loan opportunities. And lo and behold, there's 3 of the lads who've been on the pre-season tour squad, and they've already got loan moves, within days of coming back, a day or 2.
Yeah. No, yeah, I know what you mean. I think certainly I know that Alfie Devine's got a fair few Championship clubs, and I think some from the Eredivisie looking at him. But yeah, it is funny that maybe they were there and ready to go, some of those loan moves. Yeah. If maybe they were told, look, we're going to take you on a tour because we've got Will Lancashire. We know we've got an issue with Dom's ankle, so we might need you on the tour. And with Jamie Donnelly, I guess with Destiny Doggy's knee, which we need an update on badly. Maybe you could be playing at left back potentially and stuff like that. So maybe that was the point, was we'll take you, and George Abbott as a fullback as well. We'll take you on a tour, but don't worry, as soon as we come back, you can head off on your loan moves. I am a little bit concerned about it though, in terms of, you're spot on. I don't think it looks like there's a pathway right now to the first team. And I know there's this eternal paradox, isn't it, of we as football fans and journalists, of course, we want new transfers. We do. But then on the other hand, we want young players to play. But they don't complement each other, those 2 things. If you bring in new faces, new signings, those young players don't have a pathway to come into the team. And that is the problem. Is Spurs squad is a bit bloated in some departments, which is stopping some of those players. I would have liked Jamie Donnelly to stick around and maybe be a number 10. I think that would have suited him quite well in the weeks ahead, but maybe Thomas Frank just doesn't feel he's quite ready yet. And what I would say as well, Thomas Frank is someone that knows young players. You know, he worked for the Danish FA for years, managing their various youth squads. He helped bring through the likes of Eriksson, Højbjerg, Norgard we mentioned earlier. So I think if he believes a young player maybe isn't ready yet, absolutely will trust that. But what I would also say, our other favourite subject, Champions League registration, it's going to be there's not a lot of homegrown. Who do you bring in if you've got some injuries? I mean, I was looking at who's left. I know Callum Olasese is going to remain, it seems, at this moment in time to be like a bit of a leading light in the under-21s. He's only 18, because I forgot completely until I was writing a piece on it today. UEFA Youth League's back, isn't it? Spurs are playing in that again this season. Yeah. I know that if anyone's not aware, it's a youth competition that mirrors the Champions League in the group phases. You know, you play against the best young European players at European clubs. So they've got to keep quality in that as well. So you've got Olasese will play in that. Obviously, you've got Rio Kira Martin as well, James Rowsell, Reece Alexander Russell Denny, who was at the England with England at the under-19 Euros. Players like that are there. Luca Williams-Barnett, he's playing for the under-21s now. He's a big kind of talent in his own right. Janai Byfield as well went on the tour, both 16-year-olds. But again, it just feels like we're still at where Mourinho said about 2020, I think he said it. Spurs haven't got the players ready to come in at the 18 to 20, 21-year-old group. The players that they do have seem to be like 16, 17 or so, and they're not quite ready for it. Again, I don't know whether that is the case with players like Donnelly and Lancashire. I feel like they believe in them, but just not enough yet. But it does worry me, I think, that such a large group have gone out so quickly. And like I said, those Champions League squads, I'm trying to think of who's going to end up in the B list and who's going to fill up those just 21 spots beyond Brandon Austin. He's got a lot of decisions to make. You know, we haven't even spoken about Manor Solomon and Brian Hill, wherever they may be. It's and we still want new signings to come in the door. So I don't know what's happening with that squad, but to be in a position where you're left with one club-trained player kind of doesn't feel like they're making moves to address that in the future. I know Bergvall and Archie Gray will eventually become that, so that's two options. But where's the talent coming through from the academy and being given a pathway? That's just what scares me a bit. And I was thinking about this. Stuart Lewis was given that new role, wasn't he? Which was, I've got the title here somewhere because I want to get it spot on. It was, oh no, I've lost it in my bit. Where is it? It was something like not interim, as in first team academy development transition coach, something like that. I can't find it now. It's in my notes. Oh, no, I've got it. I was right. I didn't even need to look. First team academy transition coach. And Johan Langer made this big point in the interview when they were talking about coaches, about this strong bond between the academy and the first team and all these young players he's going to work with. Who's he working with now? It's going to be like him and, Luca Williams-Barnett once every couple of weeks. They're going to have to really let him work with people like Bergvall and Gray, I presume. Otherwise, they've created a role for him and then taken away all the young players that might be involved in first team training. I just, sometimes I struggle with the joined up thinking a little bit.
Yeah. With the players heading out on loan this year, I think they clearly need another loan spell to, help the first team development. But what I would say with quite a few of them, if you're constantly going out on loan, when are you going to make it in the Tottenham team? Because there comes a point, let's say, once you get to 21, 22, and you're not in the first team, you're not going to make it in the first team.
Well, it's like Alfie Devine and Dane Scarlett, isn't it?
Yeah, 100%. And like I said at the start of the podcast, Ashley Phillips as well. Yeah. If he's third season out on loan, you just can't see him making it. The point, even though he's still only a young lad. But yeah, this is it with loan deals. But hopefully some really good loan moves for the players there and a few more to follow. Right, before we call it a day, you are jetting off again, aren't you? Munich tomorrow.
No, I don't know where I am. I've lost track of time.
So pre-season friendly against Bayern Munich. Again, there was 2 games last season. I think Bayern coming out on top in them. Third time lucky for Spurs.
Well, we'll see. I think it's a good test for the PSG game. Coming up against a team with a lot of attacking quality, including a certain Harold Kane, I think will be good test for that defense and that defensive structure, which has looked a lot better, and hopefully we'll have Palhinha in there as well. Yeah, I'm very much flying in, flying out for this, having spent a lot of time away from the family. So this one, I am flying in for the match and heading straight back out the next day. But hopefully, yeah, we get a good game. Hopefully we see Solanke involved, would be nice. I mean, he did say earlier in the week that if he didn't make Newcastle game, he'd be available for Bayern. Thomas Frank said about him, because otherwise you'll be worried about his kind of fitness really going into PSG, and then Burnley just 3 days later. That's the other issue. He needs to have almost 2 11s to be ready for both of those games. But yeah, should be a good game. Harry Kane as well up against his old team, and probably won't recognise some of those players now. It's a slightly different team already from 2 years ago, and no Sonny, of course. Hopefully for him anyway, hopefully we'll hear about that deal going through in the next day or two. But yeah, an interesting experience, I think, Bayern.
Yeah. Right, that's it for today's latest episode of Golden Guest Tottenham. I assume we'll be back early next week before you head off to Italy for the UEFA Super Cup final, and another potential piece of silverware for Tottenham after winning the trophy in Hong Kong as well.
That'd be nice.
Yeah, so thank you as ever for listening to the podcast, and just keep with us at football.london for all your latest Tottenham news. You can either download Sail It in your app store and use our code GOLDGUEST at the checkout to get an exclusive 15% off your first purchase, or online you can go straight to saily.com/goldguest. For more information, please go to our episode description box.